Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I mean no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everyone who was hurt within this story the utmost peace and solace, either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, happy True Crime Thursday. Welcome back to the channel, or just welcome if you've never been here before. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful Thursday, and if you're not, I hope this video is like a vibe for you because it's kind of really fucking dark. It's also really interesting and not at all what I thought that it was gonna be when I first started researching it. It's a bit of a wild ride. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Today we're looking into the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski. Richard Kuklinski was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, USA on the 11th of April 1935. Richard was born in the family's apartment on 4th Street, Jersey City, and he was the second of 4 kids. He was born into a family with a dad who was a Polish immigrant, and he was a real rotten drunk, could be very, very brutal. And he worked on the railroads. His name was Stanley. His wife and Richard's mother, her name was Anna McNally, which I think is a really cool name, just to throw out there. And she came from a very religious Irish background, very religious. Now both Stanley and Anna, they were a little bit off the rails. They were kind of full on, they were very violent. They had a lot of like domestic violence issues. Stanley obviously was a drunk. He was a very, very bad drunk. He could be very abusive. He was very violent towards his wife. He would beat his wife, but he was also abusive towards the kids, so he was very violent towards them as well. He'd have long periods of time where he would disappear, and then he'd come back drunk, beat them all up, disappear again, come back, drink, drunk, beat them, leave. It was a really nasty cycle. Anna, on the other hand, because she was so religious, because her family was so religious, she believed very highly in discipline, and the way that she liked to discipline was with violence, essentially. So even when the dad wasn't there beating the kids, she was there beating the kids. So it was just a lot of violence, and the kids didn't understand that one was, you know, supposed to be disciplined to help them, and one's like just horrible. It was all just horrible to the kids. There was times when the parents would get into it so bad that they almost killed each other. In fact, Richard remembers when he was a young boy seeing his mum pick up a knife, a kitchen knife, and like trying to kill Stanley because they would just get into it so bad. So when Stanley was home, it was a scary place to be. You would not want to be in that household while Stanley was there. When he was gone, it was a little bit more peaceful. There was a lot less yelling. There was a lot less violence. Still a lot of discipline, but a lot less murderous violence. Growing up with that kind of violence around you and that kind of turmoil and toxic environment at home, like, it's bound to have some sort of effect on you in some way. And with Richard, it started with violence himself. He wasn't violent to other people, however. He began being violent with animals, and for him it was mostly cats and dogs. So he would, if you don't want to hear about animal abuse, just don't listen for a second. I'll like put a thumbs up when I'm done or something. Just mute me for a second. He would get cats and tie their tails in a knot and then hang them over a clothesline so that the poor bastards were like ripping each other's faces off trying to get down. And then there was other times where he would just throw them in like incinerators, like in the basement, like just and watch, by the way. Like it was a weird thing that he did, and it was like a way of feeling like he had some sort of control in his life, because I guess in other regards he didn't have control in his life, and he used to kill dogs and do all kinds of things. And when he was killing the dogs, I don't know about the cats, probably both, but he said when he was killing these dogs, he would actually envision killing his dad. He would like fantasize about it and let it play out in his head and pretend that he was murdering his dad because he just fucking hated him. Again, no more animal abuse. But I'll tell you why he wanted to kill his dad so bad, because it wasn't just the beatings. I mean, it was the beatings, but it's more the fact that the beatings had such like dire consequences that he really hated his dad. In 1941, Richard's older brother Florian was murdered by their dad by his abuse. He hit him too fucking hard and he fell down and he never got back up. He literally murdered his own son because he couldn't help but put his hands on his kids. And he was 8 years old. 8 years old, murdered by his father, and he was the oldest of the 4 kids. So at the time, Richard was only 6. He has just watched his 8-year-old brother be murdered by their father. The police obviously did, do some sort of inquiry about how he died, but the parents basically just brushed it off and said he fell and tripped down the stairs, which sort of did make sense because he had hit his head, and I guess they just didn't question it. The kids didn't speak up. They're obviously very young, so it was just swept under the rug. Shortly after the murder, Stanley left for a long period of time, and he would come back and forth, but he was definitely gone longer than he had up to this point. And after, Florian died, Anna, she started to turn really heavily into religion, even more than she already had, to the point where she was leaving the house up to 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day to go and pray at the church. So she was gone a lot. So the kids really were like kind of left to their own devices. They didn't really have anyone there to look after them. Richard had a really hard time after the loss of his brother, and he was obviously very angry and had a lot of ill will feelings towards his dad. He also felt like he lost his mum in some small way. Not that they were ever, extremely close, but she was very absent now, so that definitely affected him. He wasn't really socially adjusted at this point. He was a real skinny kid, he was real scrawny, he didn't eat a lot, he was pretty depressed, and he got fucking bullied for it. Like, he got bullied a lot. He got bullied for his background, for his family, for how he looked, because he was skinny, he was called scrawny. And kids are fucking cunts. It just took such a huge toll on him, because if school is hell and home is hell, where the fuck do you go? You don't even get a break. Anyway, eventually Stanley got over the family, like, altogether. He was just kind of done with them, didn't really care anymore. He started seeing other women on the side until eventually he just left and never came back. And so now Anna, she struggled a lot, because even though Stanley was in and out of the picture, he still, supported them and paid money and did this and did that. Now he did nothing. Now he was MIA. They had nothing to do with him. So it was all up to Anna. So she ended up working long hours at a meat packing facility. And because of this, there was actually even more pressure on the 3 kids to look after themselves. So that was difficult as well. And then Anna never left her religion. She was still very religious. So she actually kind of persuaded, however you want to say it, Richard into becoming an altar boy at her church. And he had to attend school with the nuns and the priests and the this and the that. I don't really know much about that stuff, to be honest. So if I misspeak and offend someone, I'm sorry. Richard kind of learned that the more he acted up and the more he played silly and was the class clown, the more people sort of gravitated towards him, the more people liked him, the more people laughed at him, and it made him feel good because it made him feel accepted and liked. Obviously the nuns and the priests and the whoever didn't like that, but he had been bullied for such a long period of time that the smallest grasp at some sort of positive attention from the children or some sort of acceptance, he was not about to fucking just let that go past him. So he would act up a lot, and he would act like the class clown. And because the teachers and the nuns and whatever didn't like this, they would give him the cane across the hand quite a lot, and they'd whack him over the head with a Bible, which seems ironic. But they sort of beat him a little bit too. Not fully beat him, it was disciplinary, but it was a little bit much. So now he was being beat at home and at school. Again, where the fuck do you go? Where do you get peace? Where do you get peace if everyone is beating you? And as he started growing up, he kind of realized how fucked up that was himself, and that turned him away from religion completely, because he was like, this is a load of fucking bullshit. if there is a God, why am I being beat? Why am I being beat up for no reason? Like, excuse me. He literally said something along the lines of like, if there was a God, he wouldn't want people being abused. And he's like, well, my mum's abusing me because of religion. The priests are abusing me because of religion. The nuns are abusing me because of religion. No, fuck you and fuck your religion. I don't want to be abused. And this is not my personal take on religion. I'm just relaying how he felt. He also said that nuns and priests are just sadistic. I do believe there was more to that quote, but he said that they were sadistic. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, at 13, the 3 siblings and Richard's mum, they moved to a new suburb, and this is when Richard starts to present himself in a little bit of a different way. Obviously before, he was bullied really badly, he was very shy, very socially awkward, like just didn't have a lot of self-esteem, wasn't very confident, you know, that kind of thing. And now that they were in this new suburb, he wasn't as timid. He had a lot of anger, he had a lot of resentment, and that sort of started coming out. He was a lot more confrontational than before he would sort of bottle it all up and like be very timid. He wasn't like that anymore. He was happy to confront people. That being said, the bullying didn't stop. He was still bullied here because of how he looks, because of his background, because of whatever. And there was this one group of 5 boys in particular. It was like a little crew, like a little gang from the school. They bullied him the worst. They teased him every chance that they got. They were really, really nasty to him. And it was just relentless. So one day, Richard grabs like a metal clothes pole from a wardrobe that you would hang like your dresses or whatever on. And he goes and sort of stalks and hunts down the main leader, like the main instigator in the group of these 5 boys in this little crew. So this bully, he wasn't afraid, he wasn't scared, he didn't back down. It's only Richard. Richard's a skinny kid. He's been bullying him for fucking ages. He's never done nothing about it. He's not gonna do nothing about it now. Allegedly, this bully sort of threatened him and was like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, and Richard decided that he had had enough and he let his anger build up, and at that point he lashed out and hit the bully over the head with the big metal pole, and he bludgeoned him to death. And this was his first ever act of aggression towards another human being. Obviously there was like the animal stuff, but this was the first time he'd let his anger sort of bubble to the point where he actually striked out at another human. And this gave him the biggest adrenaline rush. It made him feel so good about himself. It made him feel like he was so in control, like he was so powerful, like he was just the toughest guy, like nobody could touch him. And he thought to himself, that is it. I'm never taking abuse from anyone ever again. I can hold my own, I can control myself, like I am in control. That's all he ever wanted, was to be in control. Now what happened after this murder is a little bit muddy. Obviously he was only 13 years old. So at one point of time he said that he ran straight home and like freaked out and was really nervous and didn't know what was going to happen, felt a little bit weird about the whole thing. But then there's another version of events where he claims that he stole a car, drove the car down to the Pine Barrens, where he pulled the boy's teeth out and cut his fingers off to get rid of the fingerprints to make it harder to identify him. At 13 he claims he did this and then dumped the body. So I don't know which one is true. I don't know why there's 2 different versions of events. I'm more inclined to believe the first one at 13, but I don't know, you make your own opinion. So now he's feeling really good about himself. He's feeling really fucking confident. So while he's on this power trip, he decides to make his own crew. And that's called the Coming Up Roses. And he thinks he's top shit because he is like the leader of the gang called the Coming Up Roses. And they would sneak around, breaking into houses, breaking into shops, breaking into warehouses and just burglarizing, all of this stuff. They were making a lot of money, and he started to think that he was a real sick cunt, and he was starting to buy like fancy suits and big fancy coats and the shoes and the hats and, you know, like looking real slick. And he loved it. He would walk down the street thinking he was a straight up gangster. Like he fucking loved it. He just loved the way that it made him feel in control, powerful. He started to build a reputation for himself, and because he presented himself in such a way, people started to be a little bit cautious of him or a bit scared of him or show him a little bit more respect. And he sort of realized that, you know, if he walks the walk and can talk the talk, and you know what I mean, he figured out how to feel in control. So he caught the attention of a mob family who happened to take him in, him and his crew, and they started working for this mob family doing sort of small jobs. And one of the guys that he was sort of working under in this little operation, he saw something in Richard that he didn't see in the other boys that were a part of Richard's gang, and that was his complete lack of remorse and empathy. And like, he just had guts. Like, he would do anything and he wouldn't care. He didn't care about the consequences. He didn't have that like emotion, I guess. And he thought, there's something in this fucking kid. Like, he could be our fucking hitman. Like, it makes perfect sense. So he gave Richard this job and he said, go kill these two men. They were a part of the crew. I want them dead. Something about a loan gone wrong, or like, it's such a rabbit hole to sort of go down, like the mob ties. But so for whatever reason, these two people had to die, and he just went and did it without any questions asked. There was very, very little hesitation, if none. And that guy was like, I fucking knew it. Here we go. So this is how he did it, and this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I feel like it's important to demonstrate the kind of person that Richard was. So Richard buys a gun from a real fancy guy who was an associate of the Gambino family, who was a big mob family, and his name was Roy DeMeo. So the first time that he met Roy DeMeo was when he had borrowed money from a loan shark and he missed a payment. So this guy who worked under Roy, they both come and they beat the shit out of him, and they actually pistol whipped him and left him with a scar on his head. So he had a little bit of like a bad experience with this Roy guy. So now he's got this gun from Roy. He goes and finds these two men that he's supposed to kill, and he shoots them in the head and then goes and hides them or dumps them in some caves. After this, Richard says that Roy hired him as an employee, as a hitman, and he would work very closely with him as like an associate of his, as a debt collector, and, you know, do hits and do different things that he had to do. But a lot of people close to Roy say that this is utter bullshit, and they say that he was not a close associate with him whatsoever. He had met him twice. Once when he came and was like beaten up for missing the payment, and the second time to buy the gun. Whereas if you ask Richard, he worked very, very closely with him. Richard also claims that he actually killed Roy DeMeo in 1983 and left him in the trunk of his car, which is completely discredited by every other person that had anything to do with Roy. They all believed that it was somebody within their own crew who ended up killing him over some, you know, some mob drama. And there is a number of people who actually were very, very close with Roy who do not believe whatsoever that Richard had anything to do with him in the nature that Richard like portrays. So I just thought it was interesting to put that out there, that a lot of what he might have said could be just embellishments and not necessarily how it really went down. And don't get me wrong, he was a scary guy. Richard was a scary guy. He was a big mob fucking hitman scary guy. But I still think personally that he embellished just a little bit to make himself seem a little bit bigger and a little bit badder and a little bit more gangster than what he really was. That being said, by the 1960s, it was estimated that he had killed over 65 men on contract. So it was literally his job to go and kill whoever he was told to kill. And he was often instructed to torture the people that he had to kill as well, because it's not a friendly place in the mob. And he was known to have absolutely no mercy, like nada at all. Brutal guy. In fact, he would actually get quite a lot of pleasure out of torturing people, and he enjoyed coming up with new ways of how to torture people. He really enjoyed it. He liked what he did for work. He would cut people's fingers off one by one, obviously while they're still alive, so ouch. He would break bones, he would cut them up, he would use knives and utensils and all kinds of nasty, sharp objects. He would even start hacking into people's necks and cut their head off while they're alive. The mob boss he was working for at the time, though, he eventually got, I suppose, a little bit of a taste of his own medicine. Someone put out a hit on him and he was actually killed in his own kitchen. So after this happened, Richard lost a lot of work, obviously, because his boss was dead. And Richard had always gambled, but now his gambling problem, well, it became a problem. And he was fairly wealthy. He had a fair bit of money from the jobs that he was doing. Obviously, if you're going to kill someone, you make a lot of money, and he had killed a lot of someone, so he had a lot of money. And he gambled it all away, basically spent every cent that he had. It was quite bad. Because of this and because of the lack of illegal work, he had to go and get a legitimate job, and he started work at a trucking company, which is where he met Barbara, who was the secretary at this trucking company. And he pretty much instantly wanted to date Barbara. She was a beautiful woman, she was very classy, she was very just pretty and petite and nice, well-mannered, and he wanted that. And she wasn't really interested in him straight away at first, but he sort of just kept pursuing her until eventually she was like, okay, I'll fucking date you then. Yeah. So it wasn't long before they started properly dating and having a relationship. And then as soon as they kind of did get into a relationship, it didn't take very long to turn toxic. He became very controlling. He didn't want her seeing her friends or her family. He didn't want her sort of going anywhere without his permission. He didn't want her seeing people without him. It got to one point where she sort of said, hey babe, I want to go hang out with my friends. I want to go see my friends without you, just us, girl time. He wouldn't allow that. It was this point when she asked to see her friends that he got so angry that he actually stabbed her in the back, literally stabbed her because she wanted to see her friends without him. Run, please, just run. But at this point, she was petrified. She was too scared to leave. She felt extremely trapped, which, I mean, of course she fucking was. And her family was scared for her as well, but they didn't quite know the extent of how bad it was. And not long after this, she actually fell pregnant. But while she was pregnant, his abuse, it continued. And at one point he made her sleep outside. She literally was pregnant, sleeping out in the cold on the floor with nothing, and it was just horrible. And she ended up miscarrying due to his abuse. And then she fell pregnant another 2 times and miscarried another 2 times again because of his abuse. So it was really quite brutal, and he obviously didn't have any remorse or give a fuck, Despite hating his dad so much for what his dad did, he was now doing the same thing to Barbara. And at this point, he began striking her and hitting her in front of other people, even her family and her friends. He didn't care anymore. He knew no one was going to do anything about it. He knew she wasn't going to leave. No one was going to step in. He just didn't give a fuck. Eventually, though, Barbara did fall pregnant and successfully delivered a baby, their first daughter, called Merrick. And then she went on to have another daughter and another son. The son's name was Dwayne, and the daughter's name was Kristen. So now that Richard had a family, he wanted to bring in a little bit more income. So he started distributing illegal porn, which actually brought in a fair amount of money. And then he began hijacking trucks and burglarizing places again, and sort of just doing all the same illegal type of stuff that he did before, because you make a lot more money when you're doing things illegally than you do when you're working at a trucking company. So he went back to that life. This is a point in time where he claims he started working for Roy DeMeo, but like I said, we don't really necessarily know how accurate that is. A lot of people just don't believe it, so who knows. But he did start his life of crime again. So he started bringing in really good money. He started spoiling the girls. He started buying his wife really nice gifts, bringing her home jewelry, bringing her home like designer clothes and handbags and all kinds of stuff. And this is the thing too, is that Barbara would say that there was two Richards. There was the good Richard and the bad Richard. And the good Richard, he would come home with gifts and presents and chocolate and wine, and they'd go out on dates, and like he'd buy her dinner and he'd sweep her off her feet and he'd show her all this affection and love and kisses and praises. And then some days he'd come home and he'd fucking whack her across the head and punch her and kick her and didn't give a fuck and would, you know, swear at her and call her nasty names and tell her that she's good for nothing. So there was this really abusive guy, and then there was this really romantic guy, and she had 3 kids with him and felt really, you know, fucking trapped, like fucking trapped, bro. And then once Dwayne came along, once his son came along, Richard felt some type of way about Dwayne that he never felt about his 2 daughters. Richard actually started resenting Dwayne because Barbara was like giving all her love to Dwayne, and he was jealous, which is so ridiculous, to be jealous of your own baby. Like, what? So his work continued to pick up, and it's estimated that he killed over 200 people at this point, and he started to experiment with the ways and the methods of how he would kill these people. He liked to try different things and see what was, you know, the most efficient or the best way to hide things, that type of stuff. In 1980, Richard met this man called Robert Prong, and he was into some pretty sketchy shit as well. He had also been known to like kill on contract, be a hitman, whatever, and they actually became like pretty close work colleagues, I guess. And Robert sort of showed him how to kill with cyanide, which became one of Richard's favorite ways to murder people. Richard enjoyed it so much that he actually tended to brag about the fact that he would kill people with cyanide. I don't know why it was such a thrill for him using cyanide when he was so violent, and there obviously is more violent ways to do it, but he really enjoyed it. And he would fill like nasal sprays with the cyanide and then just like like get people when they sort of weren't expecting it, and he just really enjoyed it. And these 2 little buddies, they would experiment with how to get rid of bodies as well. So they would try different methods each time. They'd try like oil drums or hiding them in caves, or they'd go to one of those car smash things and like crush up the car while there's someone still in the boot. There were even times where Richard in particular, he would experiment with rats, and he would leave a person like chained up in a room and let the rats eat them alive, and that's how they would die. And this is where a lot of people that Richard worked with actually took a step back and was like, no, that's fucked up. Because Richard would actually film it. He would film the rats eating these people alive, and the rats would like literally eat the people's eyeballs and like pull out, like they would literally like pull the fucking eyeball out while the person's still alive. Like, can you imagine how brutal and horrifying that would be? Obviously the person is screaming bloody fucking murder, and Richard would watch it and film it, and like he's working with real tough, scary fucking badass and gangster mobsters, and they are like, that's too much, bro, like chill, man, chill. And then everyone started calling him, this is where he got his name, the Iceman, because he started leaving people in freezers to mess with the like time of death, so that, you know, there's a lot more ways to get away with murdering someone if the time of death is recorded differently to what it actually was, because obviously you can like make up an alibi, or I mean have a real alibi because you were there at that time, but the time of death is different. So it was quite clever, and everyone kept calling him the Iceman. But it's also said that that was actually Robert's idea, so not sure about that one. At some point though, Robert pushed sort of the boundaries of their friendship, and he asked Richard to kill his ex-wife and his son. He tried to put a hit out on them and wanted like his best work buddy to do it. Richard had a rule that he didn't kill women unless they were also killers themselves, and he had a rule that he didn't hurt children. So he wasn't going to kill the son, and he didn't want to kill the wife. So he just said no. And I just want to add, like, this guy had a very warped sense of morality. It was fine to kill men, it was fine to torture men who actually hadn't done anything wrong, but you can't murder a woman. But you can abuse a woman and bash a woman and, you know, cause her to miscarry. You can do that, but you can't kill her. But you can torture men. And he was known for also torturing a number of rapists and sex traffickers, and he sort of did this as like a hero way. He literally chopped off a rapist's thing and then threw him into water alive, hoping he would be eaten by sharks. And he did this as like him wanting to big note himself as like a hero because he was a rapist. So but he was a murderer. So he had a very like warped sense of morality. Anyway, because he said no and like refused to do the hit on the wife and the son, there was a little bit of tension within their relationship now. And then Richard found out that Robert was planning a hit on this family. But instead of killing just the family, he had intended on poisoning a whole big group of people. And Richard just thought that this was wrong, and this is why I say he has a weird sense of morality. But also, not only is it wrong, it was just messy and unnecessary, and like that's a lot of casualties for just one family. Like there's more efficient ways to do it, and he did pride himself on being quite efficient and quite good at his job. So when he found this out, he just thought it was fucking dumb. Like, it was just dumb. And there was just tension now. So he was like, you're a fucking idiot. He had to go at him for it and was like, no, bro, like, that's fucking dumb. And Robert turned around and threatened Richard's family, which did not go down well. Don't threaten a mobster's family, bro. Robert was later found in his truck with 2 bullet holes in his chest. And he was dead, obviously. So... and that was his friend. At this point, Richard was pretty much alone. He was used to working closely with someone else. Now he didn't have that like work buddy. He didn't have a mob boss that he was directly working under. So he decided that he would start his own crew like he did when he was younger, except obviously bigger and scarier and more serious. He decided he would start his own crew now. So now he was dealing pornography, drugs, weapons. He was involved in money laundering. He was involved in illegal gambling and obviously killing people. Also illegal. So at this point in his life, he's like the big boss. He's the big bad. He's got a lot of people, you know, working under him. Got a lot of operations going on, and the police are, you know, interested in him and what he's doing. They obviously know a fair chunk of what's going on. They usually do have a fair chunk of evidence, just not enough to, you know, take the whole thing down. So they kind of play the long game, and that's really what they were doing. They knew what he was up to, but they needed more evidence. So there wasn't any arrest immediately. But in 1980, one of Richard's crew members, he gets arrested, and his name's Percy. So he goes to jail. And at this point, Richard's like, oh shit, I hope no one else in the crew gets done. I hope like we're not about to collapse. I hope this isn't all gonna fall apart. And on the same day, 2 more warrants for arrest come out for another 2 members of his crew called Daniel and Gary. Now he's worried, so he quickly gets a hotel. He puts them in the hotel, hides them away. They're hiding from police. They're now on the run, and he says, lie low, don't leave, don't talk to no one, everything goes through me. Like, be real careful, don't fucking get arrested. Don't do it. And Daniel does what he's told, and he stays in the hotel, but Gary leaves the hotel to go and visit his daughter. And once he's gone, he sort of mentions how he wants to leave the crime life, and he's kind of had enough, and he kind of wants to just chill, and like he just doesn't really want to do it anymore. It's getting a little bit risky, like things are just, it's starting to get too close, like he's just done. And this quickly got back to Richard. So now Richard, Daniel, and Percy, the one who's in jail, all 3 of them actually agree, we need to kill him. Like, we need to cut loose ends. He says he's out. If he gets picked up, he's going to rat on all of us. He could send us all to prison for fucking life. We need to get him. So Richard gives him a burger, like a beef patty burger that has cyanide in the patty. and is waiting for him to die from this cyanide poisoning. I'm not laughing because it's funny that he's dying of the cyanide. I'm laughing because he gives him poison to kill him and then got so impatient because he's just sitting there waiting for him to die that he ordered Daniel to strangle him anyway. So they ended up strangling him, and then they placed him between the mattress and the bed of the motel, that they're in, and left him there. And there was a number of patrons who used that room in the time before they found the fucking body. So people were literally laying on top of a mattress on top of a dead body, which is really gross. But anyway, it's also ironic, I do just need to add, that they killed Gary for leaving the hotel room, but the one who was in jail, Percy, he's the one who actually ended up agreeing to testify against Richard, and he had to go into protective custody, which I just think that's very, it's not funny, like it's fucked up, because he literally said, yeah, go kill Gary, and then it's fucked up. And then Richard got real paranoid and he ended up killing Daniel as well in a similar way, poisoning him with cyanide and then getting impatient and just killing him anyway. I feel like he could have just not done that mistake again. He could have just killed him the first time, like without the cyanide. I don't know, whatever. And it took years for the police to actually get enough like evidence on Richard to arrest him. It took a long time. They actually even had to build like an operation, like it was a whole task force type of thing. Like it was a big deal. They even nicknamed the task Operation Iceman. Like they fucking wanted Richard so bad, and they ended up having undercover police officers obviously go undercover, and they had to build a lot of connections with people who were close to Richard so that they could get close to Richard. And they actually used the help of one of Richard's closest friends, the only friend that he would never and had never even considered turning on or, you know, being funny with. This one friend that he actually really trusted, and he's the one that helped police capture him in the end. So that's a little bit ironic as well. But they had an undercover cop get quite close to Richard, and he ordered a hit on this person. So then Richard went to go and buy cyanide from another person who was also undercover, posing as like a, I don't know, like a bad guy who sells cyanide. So he goes and buys the cyanide, and then he leaves and he walks towards wherever he's got to go carry out a murder. And on the way, he sees the dog and he decides to test the cyanide on the dog. So he tests it and the dog's completely fucking fine. It wasn't actually cyanide. They weren't going to give like an actual murderer cyanide. So now he's really suspicious, and he's like, why is this? Like, he was just very sus on the thing. So he actually cancelled the hit altogether. He didn't call the guy and cancel because he knew something was up, but he just decided not to do it. So he actually just got in his car and he was driving home, and then he got stopped at a roadblock, which is very lucky because they had obviously planned to, you know, get him when he was carrying out this hit. So it's very lucky that he was stopped at a roadblock, and they arrested him. They found guns in the car, so he was charged with having a weapon, and his wife was also in the car, and she fought so hard to stop the police from arresting him that she got arrested for interfering. So it was really crazy. But finally they got him. They got the fucking Iceman. But despite him killing like an estimated 260-ish plus people, he was only charged with 5 counts of murder, which is crazy, bro. He was also charged with attempted murder, weapon charges, and robbery charges as well, but I just can't get over the murder thing. Like 5 out of 200 and something, like what the fuck? In the end, he was sentenced to 2 60-year prison sentences that would run concurrently, and he wasn't eligible for parole until he was like 110 years old, so never. He actually did a bunch of press and interviews, and there was a lot of books written about him, and he would sort of do like tell-alls and give stories and this and that. As another reason why I feel like a lot of it is embellishments, because he made a lot of fucking money from these book deals and these shows and all these press things. He didn't make the money, but all the money went to Barbara and his kids. And also his daughter, Merrick, her boyfriend, actually helped kill one of the crew members well, not helped kill, but helped get rid of the body. Sorry, my bad. That I should cut that out. But I just thought that was really interesting as well, because I wonder what his kids are like up to now, like if they're sketchy, because obviously her boyfriend was quite sketchy. So I wonder. There's honestly just so much to this story. I know this video is long, but there is so much more to this story. There is so much more if you want to look into all the mob ties. There's so much more if you want to look into his family, into his kids, into his crimes, like into his actual like business crimes, not even the murder crimes, but like the illegal shit he was doing. There is so much to this story. Like, you should probably definitely go look into it. It's very interesting. Oh, and Richard's younger brother, he actually ended up going to jail for murder as well, because he raped a like girl and then threw her over a bridge. So he was fucked up too. And when a reporter asked Richard, like, oh, what do you have to say about your brother? He was like, well, we come from the same dad. So he still fucking blames his dad, which is crazy because he acted just fucking like his dad and bashing Barbara. Like, craziness, craziness, craziness. Anyway, let me know what you think about this one down in the comments down below. I said down twice, but that's fine. Let me know. I really want to know what you guys think about this one, because I just think it's so interesting. There's so many different layers and aspects to it, and I would really like to know what you think about the mob side, and about whether you think like some of it was embellished or whether that's just me. I want to know. Let me know. Comment. Thank you. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you feel like it. I would really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so that you can see all my new videos. I post every single Thursday all about true crime, and I'd love to have you be a part of it, because otherwise it's just me talking to the camera for no reason. Actually, I quite enjoy it, to be fair, so I'll watch myself. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Don't order a hit on your wife or your son, otherwise you'll be murdered instead, rightfully so. Don't rape anyone, otherwise your dick will be cut off and the sharks will eat you, rightfully so. And most importantly, don't abuse your motherfucking children, because you're creating some fucking scary ass fucking monsters out here who are killing a lot of people when it's really unnecessary. So please don't do that. Thank you so much for watching. Please be safe out there. Bye.